ninth chapter of Bhagavad Gita is literally the middle of Gita, because Gita has 18 chapters and 9 is in the middle, and quite appropriately it is the heart of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says that this topic of this chapter is the most confidential yoga, which is the direct wisdom of truth, of God, of self. So far in the Gita, Krishna has spoken to Arjuna first about the way of acting without attachment by surrendering all the results, accepting whatever results come forth with equanimity, and then also to recognize that the very doer is only the three modes of nature, which is Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and the sense of doership that one claims is due to false ego. And then he therefore spoke about the truth, which is the ever present being who always abides and in which everything rises and falls. So all of this is summarized now. So Krishna says, listen to this carefully and without any sense of envy. So he addresses Arjuna as Anasuya. Anasuya means one who is without any envy, because the nature of the ego is to always be in a sense of comparison and therefore not be submitting, not be surrendering, and always wanting to claim something, including knowledge. And therefore, when we listen to any knowledge coming from the great teachers, from Bhagavan, we have to be in the mood of humility. So this has been emphasized many times. Here also Krishna says to Arjuna specifically that you are without any sense of envy and therefore you are ready for this wisdom. And so thereby indicating to all of us that we have to be also humble. And then he explicitly says, Ashraddha dana purusha dharmasya asya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartate. He says, mrityu samsara vartmani. He says, those who are without Shraddha, that is, those who are without this humility, sincerity, focused attention, all of that. Shraddha is again a beautiful word which brings many layers of meaning. Total faith in the teaching, confidence in the teacher, humility, and also a curious, inquiring spirit. All of this goes together. If we have only one of the above, even it is not complete. One has to be curious, to inquire, but also do so with humility and not in a challenging mode. So if we do it in this way, Krishna says that you can then get this wisdom not simply as knowledge but as experience. He says, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam Yajnatva Mokshyase Ashubhat. Jnana is wisdom, Vijnana is the direct experience of the wisdom. So if we get both the wisdom and the direct experience of the wisdom, which is to say that we not only understand it but we embody it. And if we embody the whole experience of wisdom, then we are free of all inauspiciousness, ashubhat. So the whole problem many times is we are caught so much in the head and we think through the head, we act through the head, and we also approach spiritual wisdom through the head. And therefore, we don't get the essence of it. There is a lot of questioning that comes from the head, and all of this is based on knowledge and memory and thinking, all of which is a very limited faculty we have. When we are living fully from our being, from our whole body, first of all, and from the heart. And if we listen in that way, then we have a totally different quality. So, one of the easiest ways one can relate to it is if we listen to a beautiful music. When we listen to a very soul stirring music, it is not logic that is touched by the music, it is one's whole being that is touched, and thought is transcended in that moment of listening. So, we all have that direct experience of listening beyond the mind. So, if we can simply listen in that way, not with the thinking faculty on, but with the whole being fully attentive, then that kind of listening is what Krishna says here. If you listen in this way and without, therefore, any sense of ego, then you can be free of all ignorance and get this not as simply an understanding but as a living, embodied experience. So then he says two verses which are very beautiful. He says first that the whole universe is pervaded by my unmanifest being. He says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina. By my unmanifest being, that is by the pure unmanifest consciousness, this whole universe is pervaded. Matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avastitah. He says, they are all in me, but I am not in them. It's a very mystical verse, and it becomes even more mystical, and we'll unpack both of them together. Next verse he says, Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram. But in reality, they don't even exist in me. So first he says, the whole universe is pervaded by my unmanifest being. They all exist in me, but I do not exist in them. But in reality, they don't even exist in me. This is the mystery of this yoga, this opulent yoga, this yogam aishwaram. So what it means is that if we look at it from the standpoint of pure being, at the manifest level, all of us, all the bodies, all the things, all the stars, planets, galaxies, everything is manifest in pure consciousness. The pure beingness is what appears as the whole manifest universe. And therefore, the whole manifest universe is in consciousness. But from the perspective of pure consciousness, there is only pure consciousness. The appearance of the universe with all the manifest beings is as given as an example in many places. In Bhagavatam too, it is said it is like the appearance of water in a mirage. So, does the water exist or not? Obviously, the water, from the standpoint of the sun, there is no water, there is only sunlight. But from the standpoint of the onlooker, the sunlight appears as mirage in desert. So the world is only an appearance. Of course, it doesn't mean that the appearance is unreal, it is just apparent. So we cannot deny the existence of what we see because the senses see all these activities, this world, this manifests objects, people, and all of that. And yet we cannot also assert that it is always there because even our own experience shows that everything is coming and going, just as in the dream. And that's why the dream world is a perfect example. When we have a dream, there are things appearing, the senses seem to be functioning, we hear, smell, taste, touch, and see. There are people, there is events, everything seems real. And we cannot say in the dream that I will just jump off a building because it's unreal, because we will directly feel the fear of death or of anything in the dream. But yet we wake up from the dream, we then recognize that all of that was a dream, and therefore it was not something that had any substantial reality. So, similarly, this waking state also, from a transactional perspective, it has reality because we have to engage with events, with people, with laws of physics. All of that are real. Gravity and all the laws that work are all operating perfectly with great intelligence, actually. There is so much order in the universe. And yet, this entire order is only an appearance in consciousness. So that's why Krishna says, everything appears in me, but I am not in them. That is to say, the objects that are appearing in consciousness are simply an appearance. And therefore, from the standpoint of pure consciousness, they have no substantial existence. But from the standpoint of the objects, they have existence. So, if we understand this, then we recognize that everything that there is only rooted in consciousness, and it has its existence in consciousness. It is created, as it were, in consciousness. It is sustained by consciousness. It dissolves within consciousness. And yet, from the standpoint of pure consciousness, there is no manifest universe from the absolute state. So, we all also see this relatively when we go to deep sleep, even every day. So, when we go to deep sleep, there is absolutely nothing there. There is only the sense of total peace and calm. And then, when we come out of it, there is the mysterious power which immediately wakes up the mind is active, then all the memories flood in, all the perceptions flood in, and the whole universe immediately is, as it were, created within our own consciousness. So that power which relatively creates our world every day when we wake up is the same power that creates the whole cosmic universe, and it has its own cycle, just as we have a cycle of sleep and waking up, sleep and waking up, and then the same cycle repeats upon death as well. One wakes up into a different body. Similarly, the cosmic universe also has its cycle, which is given as yugas. There is 4 yugas that are given, and that becomes a many cycles of this becomes a kalpa. All of this is given only to give a sense of the infinitude of even time. So time goes on forever cyclically, round and round, round and round, and there is no beginning, there is no end, and it is a constant cycle. And this is in fact very nicely being validated by physics as well now, that the Big Bang is not the ultimate beginning, it is only the beginning of this cycle. And there have been many cycles before, and there will be many cycles after. So this cycle of the universe going round and round is the power of this, what is called as Maya or Prakriti, which rises within consciousness and manifests it. And we get a taste of it, as we said, in our own daily cycle of deep sleep and waking up. When we wake up, we everything comes forth. When we go to sleep, everything, when we go to deep sleep, when we are in dream world, we create another world there as well. But then when we also transcend the dream world and enter deep sleep, where there is absolutely no thought of any kind, then we dissolve everything, and then again it comes up. So here the important thing to recognize is we don't do anything. We cannot ever will ourselves to sleep. We cannot will ourselves to wake up. Sleep comes on its own, waking up comes on its own, and therefore this power of consciousness which brings forth the universe upon waking up and which dissolves the universe upon sleeping happens with its own intelligence. And the same way as it happens at the individual level, it happens at the cosmic level. So that's why Krishna says that all the beings, they all dissolve at the end of each kalpa, just as we dissolve individually. He says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punastani Kalpado Visrujamyaham. So at the end of each kalpa is a measure of time, a long measure of time, millions of years. He says, at the end of each kalpa, the whole universe also dissolves, and at the beginning of the next kalpa, the universe comes forth. And we can simply relate to it, as we said, through our own cycle of day and night. So that is why the scriptures say very symbolically that the whole creation is the day and night of Brahma. So during the day of Brahma, creation comes forth, and during the night, creation is dissolved. And that is very nicely symbolic again of how the individual and the cosmic have the same rhythm. It's just the scales are vastly different. So therefore, Krishna says, if you understand this, that everything is pure consciousness, which is my true being, and I pervade this whole universe as this pure consciousness, and in me appear this entire manifest universe. And from my standpoint, the manifest universe in reality doesn't even exist, but it apparently does. And therefore, everyone and everything in this is sustained by me. And so, if we understand all this, then Krishna says, therefore, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetuna anena kaunteya jagat parivartate. He says the whole universe, therefore, is under my, he says, Adhyaksha. Adhyaksha can be translated in many ways, but the way Shankaracharya says is in my vision. One way to look at it is in my control, but it's not even a question of active control, but it is simply the vision. The in the pure presence or vision of consciousness comes forth this whole universe, Prakriti as he says, which is made of animate and inanimate objects, and they all also dissolve into the same source. And that's why he says, my activity is without any sense of attachment whatsoever. So the whole movement of the cosmic intelligence, as we see the movement of the creation of at all levels, whether it is the whole cosmic creation or creation of species, creation of people, the process of birth, all of this happens automatically, as it were. That is, there is no apparent doer. We don't see this. This is why there are many who find it hard to accept the presence of God, because they see that things are just happening. And it is in fact true, things are just happening, but there is an intelligence that is behind this, because it's not random happening. Everything that happens like clockwork, with perfect intelligence, symmetry, and harmony. And yet there is no sense of doership by the cosmic creator as well. So that's why he says, Nachamam tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya. They don't bind me at all, because from the standpoint of pure consciousness, which is Bhagavan, He doesn't actually do anything, and yet everything is done in his presence. And that's why the example of sun is a very nice way to relate to it. In the presence of sun, many activities happen. The lotus blooms, the water gets evaporated, clouds are formed, forests are sustained, farming happens. So many things happen because of the sun, and yet the sun doesn't do anything. The sun is simply present, and the very presence of sun is essential for all these activities. And yet without the sun nothing will happen, and yet the sun doesn't have any sense of doership. So that's exactly why Krishna says, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. So in my presence, everything happens, and yet I don't do anything. And then he says, therefore, people who do not know me, because, so there is two ways to read this verse. He says, Avajananti ma mudam manushim tanumashritam. Those who are attached to the human body, or the physical body, they do not know me because they are caught in the sense of being the body and taking the body as I. That is one. And the other aspect is the mystical aspect of Bhagavan appearing in human body as Krishna here. So when the same divine intelligence, when he descends as an avatar in the human form as Krishna here, people don't recognize that either. There are many who deny, therefore, the whole possibility of Krishna being Bhagavan, Krishna being the Supreme, because they look at him as another human who came and who's a historical personality. And some people even deny that. But Krishna here says, if you are caught in this idea of being attached to your body and look at everyone as simply the body, then first of all, you don't recognize the source, and you suddenly then cannot recognize the mystic power of this by which I have descended as the human form here. So, this is very related to the fourth chapter, where Krishna also says there that whenever there is increase in chaos in the universe, I take a personal form to set it right. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He says, whenever there is descent, whenever there is descent into chaos, then I set it right by coming forth. So there is the mystical aspect of the avatar, which is the descent of this intelligence into the manifest universe in a human form, that also cannot be understood by one who is simply caught in logic. If we are simply looking at everything from a logical standpoint, then it's very difficult, incomprehensible even to understand it. So, before that, even to recognize that I am not the body is very difficult because we are caught so strongly in the bodily identification. So Krishna says, therefore, what happens is, for such beings, he says their activities, hopes, and their knowledge are all eventually futile. Because if you are caught in the bodily identification, then we are always frustrated. All our hopes are frustrated because we are attached to the body, we are attached to the things and people associated with the body. We try to hold on to them. We see that everybody and everything is impermanent, and yet that wisdom doesn't go into our heart, and we are frustrated when there is loss, and we are engaging in activities which are rooted in false hopes and false desires, and therefore we are frustrated. So in many places this is indicated in Gita and in Bhagavatam, that there are two ways to act in life. One is out of desire and hope and fear and all the rest. Other is out of love and compassion. If we act out of desire, hope, fear, covetousness, then such activities are all futile because they are only going to be frustrated. So Krishna says, Mogasha, Moga Karmana, Moga Jnana Vichetasaha. And this quality is found in all of us when we are caught in desires and hopes and fears. We are frustrated. There is therefore despair, anger, disappointment, and all the rest. But it doesn't mean that we can ever stand still or sit still. We are always impelled to act. And so the same impulse to act can be dovetailed to this vision of seeing everyone and everything as the expression of the same intelligence and therefore acting out of love and compassion. Then we can act without any sense of attachment, and we can yet act very intensely, in fact, with greater energy than one who acts with desire and fear, with tremendously greater energy. And with that energy, we can bring forth this activities that are rooted in love and compassion. So here Krishna therefore says, those who are in that way, they are called as Mahatma. So those who are true Mahatmas, who are truly realized beings, they first of all recognize me as the only truth that there is. And by recognizing so, they act in this way without any sense of attachment. So they always glorify me. This is a very beautiful verse. In fact, there are a couple of very beautiful verses. One of them is Satatam kirtayanto maham yatantascha dridhavrataha namastyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. So they are always, those who have realized this, they only see one truth. Therefore, they only glorify this one truth, which is Bhagavan. So they see that the whole universe, the entire manifest universe, is there only because of the intelligence of the Supreme Cosmic Being. And this intelligence is rooted in pure consciousness, which is the pure Satchit Ananda. And therefore, all that there is, including the sense of me, the mind, the thoughts, the ego, the body, the senses, all the experiences, everything is happening only because of Him. And when we recognize this, there is nothing to be realized, even. There is nothing to be attained. There is nothing to individually experience, but only to always be in this sense of awe and glory and love towards this one source which makes everything possible. So that is a very important teaching of Krishna here, because there are many who want to escape the world, as it were, because of the suffering in the world. So because, as already mentioned, life is temporary, life is full of uh, different types of suffering. Even Krishna has said it in many verses. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam, he says elsewhere, that this place is temporary and therefore filled with suffering. So, seeing all this, one impulse would be to completely escape the world and somehow retreat somewhere, and also retreat into just pure consciousness and not have any engagement with the world. And there are some teachings which say that, but that teaching is partial, because one cannot live in this world without relating to the world in some form. Even if you are in a forest, we are going to relate to the other creatures. We have to eat some food. Even if you are in an ashram, wherever we go, we cannot escape life. So the right way to live is not to escape life, but to embrace life with this sense of awe and reverence. So we are not then holding on to life with a sense of attachment, but we are only revering and glorifying life and its very source. And if we do that, then every moment, everywhere, every relationship, work, family, all the rest can all be in this mood of seeing the divine in everyone and everything. And so then we can say, as he says, Satatam Kirtayanto, then one can be always glorifying. We don't have to have any division, then we don't have to make it a fragmentary activity where we only glorify Bhagavan when we go to a temple or when we go to a church or when we sit in meditation, but it's all the time. So, and that's why there is another beautiful verse in this chapter where Krishna says, Ananyas chintayanto mam yajanav pariyupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Therefore, such a person who always ananyas chintayanto mam, without any other thought, is always in this cognition, glorifying me, surrendered unto me, seeing me in all activities, in all forms, in all thoughts, everywhere. He doesn't have to worry about anything because his being, his yoga kshemam vahamiham means what is necessary for him shall be provided and what he lacks shall be given. So what he has will be protected and what he lacks shall be given. So this is very beautiful verse of surrender, because normally we always want to hold on to the world and go into God realization. But Krishna says, no, you completely surrender unto me and I shall give you whatever you need. The same sentiment is there in many other teachings too. If you don't hold anything, and if we totally surrender our being unto Bhagavan, recognizing that He alone He is our very heart, very soul, very breath, everything that happens is through the intelligence of this pure being, and in the heart is the presence of the pure being. So if we simply look at our own being at all levels, even if we take our body as our part of our being, the body is functioning because of the intelligence of the whole universe. The senses are functioning because of the intelligence of the universe. Thoughts are happening, speech is happening, actions are happening, all of this. So everything that is happening because of the intelligence of the universe, including the sense of I. When I say I, that sense of I also happens because of the intelligence of the universe. It just comes up on its own and everything has its purpose. And beneath all of this is the pure sense of awareness, which is in our own heart. And that is why called the cave of the heart, because it is deep within us, and yet this awareness is unchanging. And that is the only thing that's not happening, because it's not coming and going, it is always there. And that sense of awareness is also Bhagavan. So therefore, neither the happenings are our doing, nor the awareness is our doing. So there is nothing to be called ours, nothing to be called me or mine. All there is only Bhagavan. And when we recognize this truth, and that Bhagavan is therefore the pure self, so self-realization and God realization are then the same. When we recognize this as God, this as true self, and therefore we don't have any attachment to anything else, and we always abide in this truth, then that is the highest wisdom. That is why in this chapter he uses the word Guhyam. Guhyam means, it comes from the same root Guha, which means cave. So it is the truth that is there in the cave of our heart, and therefore it seems hidden, but this wisdom reveals it to us. And if we internalize this, then we see that everything that there is Him. And then Krishna describes it also beautifully. To just give a few examples, he says, Aham kratur aham yajna swadaham aham aushadam. So he says, when we do any sacrifice, this is there in other chapters too. He says, everything, the fire for the sacrifice is me, the ladle is me, the offering is me, and the consumption of it is me. So the easiest way to see this, the way of sacrifice. So normally we don't do any fire sacrifice these days, but we actually do every day, because the whole process of eating is a fire sacrifice. So when we actually eat food, there is a digestive fire in our body, and the fire outward is only symbolizing this fire inward as well. So if we truly see it in the right way, then just as we offer something to the fire outwardly when we do yajna, here we are offering something to the fire inside, which is it's literally called the Jatharagni, the fire in the stomach, the digestive fire. So if we can relate to this by simply seeing how the food that comes is made by the intelligence of the universe. We need the whole universe to make a plate of food. We cannot just buy food with money. It takes farmers, it takes sun, it takes rain, it takes everything for a plate of food. Then the plate is made by someone, then the ladle is made by someone, or the spoon or fork or whatever we use to eat. And the mouth that chews the food, and then the digestion, and then the fire that consumes the food in the stomach. Everything is the cosmic intelligence. Therefore, when Krishna says, I am the fire, I am the offering, I am the one that consumes in the fire, we see this. This is why a great saint I met once said, you don't have to meditate separately if you eat in this consciousness. Whenever we eat every meal, we are actually engaging in yajna, in sacrifice. That is why it is important to not eat food watching something or being distracted. But if we actually look at the food, offer it with consciousness, see the food getting digested and becoming the body. The food, every bite we take, the body has the intelligence to make the food into body. So we don't have anywhere else to go. We don't need anywhere else to go but to see this happening every day, every meal. And so that's a beautiful example Krishna gives here. And then there are many things he then says about all the Vedas, all of seasons, heat, rain, everything is coming forth from me. And therefore Krishna says, if you recognize all this and you surrender unto me, then you attain the supreme wisdom. And yet, if you go to some partial gods, so that is to say, people who go to worship, even when they get into religion, there are many who want specific goals. They want some financial goal or some material goal, or they want to go to some heavenly realm instead of recognizing the truth of God here and now. All of this, Krishna says, you can do anything you want, but in reality, you are doing that out of ignorance. But when you recognize the truth that the Supreme Being is here and now, I pervade the whole universe and I am all there is. With this knowledge, if you engage in devotion, then your devotion is complete. And therefore, he says, this is another beautiful verse which summarizes the whole chapter. He says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give to people, do everything as a surrender unto me. He says, Yat karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Give everything as a surrender unto me by recognizing this truth that I alone am, Bhagavan alone is. So Krishna says, recognize that there is only one supreme being who pervades this universe. He is the source, He is the sustenance, He is the dissolution. And when we recognize this, then every activity can be an activity of surrender. Every relationship is a relationship recognizing Bhagavan in the other person. And with this mode of living, he says one can be free all the time. And when this person, he or she, is in this mode of living, then Krishna says he easily realizes me. So he says, I am the same to everyone, and yet one who looks to me, surrenders unto me, he easily realizes me. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayite teshu chapyaham. He immediately recognizes me. And not only that, Krishna says very beautifully, and this is something that liberates everyone. He says this can be done by the worst sinner. He says, Apiched suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavyaha. So even if the worst sinner turns to this wisdom, he has to be recognized as a saint, he says. So there is no qualification needed, no qualification of birth, gender, race, even scholarship, nothing is needed. If we simply have this mode of surrender, and there are many stories of this, the greatest story, of course, many knows the story of Waliki, who was a dacoit, who was basically engaging in robbery of travelers. And he was graced with the presence of Narada, and in an instant, because of the grace of Narada, he recognized his folly of living as a robber, and he turned to Bhagavan and he became a great saint. So this is a story from the Puranas, but this can be seen here and now. There are many examples of such people. In fact, there was once a prisoner in Texas who got in touch with this teaching, and he was so happy to read this, and he was writing about this to a friend of mine. So this is happening even now. There is no qualification. So Krishna says, even if the worst sinner, if he turns towards me, in that very instance, in that very moment, he is beginning his journey towards freedom, and he has to be considered a saint. He says, Sadhureva mantavyam. And therefore he says, everyone can do this. You simply have to recognize this wisdom and surrender unto me. And he ends this chapter with a beautiful verse which glorifies the mood of loving devotion, surrender, and wisdom all together. He says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktaiva atmanam matparayanaha. Therefore, recognize me as the only truth, recognize Bhagavan as the only truth. Manmana, contemplate only on him. Madbhakto, be in loving devotion towards him. Madhyajimam namaskuru, and therefore only adore him, revere him, worship him. And by doing so, mame vaishyasi, you shall realize him here and now. Yuktaiva, by being constantly united with him, you shall realize him and recognize him, matparayanaha. So this is the beautiful 9th chapter, which gives forth, as Krishna says, the Raja Vidya, the highest wisdom. In this chapter, first time, Krishna most explicitly, having described the whole lay of the land of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and the nature of self, he gives this total mood of loving devotion and surrender with wisdom, a wisdom that doesn't stay in the head but goes to the heart, by which one surrenders completely with love, seeing him as the only truth in everyone, everything, everywhere. And that's why this chapter is at the heart of Gita, and a very beautiful chapter. And from here on, the next few chapters, Krishna will deepen this mood of surrender through recognizing the truth of Bhagavan as the only being, as the only, or to put it simply, to recognize that God alone exists.